Today, it's all about mushrooms. I wish I was a forager and that I could say that I brought these all from the forest, but I did not. They're a blend from the supermarket, from the farmer's market, but basically right now it's mushroom season here in Budapest, Hungary, so I really had the craving for something mushroomy. And I thought, well, how could I combine all the best mushrooms together? And I decided, well, like a ragù, or what the Hungarians have is a mushroom paprikás, a Gombapaprikás as it's called. But before we get into the recipe, I want to show off these beautiful mushrooms to you. So you have the white button mushroom, which is something that I think everyone recognizes because you'll find this in the supermarket. This is your classic. Then you have the shiitake, which if you've had like stir fries from Chinese takeout places, you probably have seen these. Oftentimes they use the dried version because it's easier to procure, but I love it fresh. With these, you don't really want to use the stem because it's very, very tough, so you'll trim those off. Then my favorite is the chanterelle. This is like the gourmetest, if that's even a word, of mushrooms. It's so delicious. These you really have to find someone who forages for them because you won't get these at the supermarket. So this is something you'd pick up at the farmer's market. Usually they're covered in like pine needles and leaves and dirt, so you really need to clean these well. Then we have this mushroom, which is oftentimes sold as the honshi-meiji mushroom. In English, they're called beach mushrooms more commonly. These are also really delicious. They have great flavor and they come in white or in this brown cap. And then one of my favorites, because it's just so meaty, is the oyster mushroom. The reason why it's called an oyster mushroom is because oysters grow very similar to this in the sense that they kind of build on each other like this. That's how oysters grow in the ocean. So of course, whoever named these mushrooms thought of that as the concept. And so I probably won't use all of these mushrooms because this is almost like 2 pounds worth. But for the recipe, I definitely suggest between a pound and a pound and a half. And you can use any blend you like, so it doesn't have to be these 5 mushrooms here. Whatever you can find, whatever you like, it's really up to you. So for this ragù, we're going to start by sautéing some onion and some garlic, then the mushrooms, and then it's all going to be brought together with some heavy cream. I think there's no better pairing than mushrooms and cream. That sweetness really will counter the earthiness of the mushrooms, and I think that's the best part of this ragù. And for our pasta, I'll be using a shape that's often referred to as campanelle, which means bell in Italian, or it's sometimes called gigli, which is like a bell-shaped flower. This pasta, I think, is really pretty with the mushrooms because it has this kind of frilly edge, and I think that'll really kind of build off of the mushroom shapes. So let me show you how to make this wonderful mushroom ragù with pasta. So one of the most important things about cooking with mushrooms is to get them really clean. You don't really want to wash them unless they're really, really dirty. So what I suggest is just moistening a paper towel and just giving it a little rub. For example, with the button mushroom, really it's the top that needs most of the rubbing. And with the stem, since it's kind of woody, I would just remove them. But if they look pretty good, then you could leave the stem on. And now I'm going to slice up the button mushrooms. So like about that thick, and add them to my bowl. So for the shiitake mushrooms, I want to also remove the stem because this is even woodier than the button mushroom. Shiitakes are usually really, really clean. Oftentimes it's just, you'll find a few things like stuck here and there that you can just kind of scrape out if there's some dirt. So what I really like about shiitake mushrooms is that their texture is a little chewy, almost a little rubbery, but in a good way, if I could describe it that way. But each mushroom is kind of distinct because they all have their own unique flavor, their own texture, and I really like how it comes together in this dish because it just is just an experience in your mouth with all these different flavors and textures going on. It's really, really nice. And now I'm going to slice up the shiitakes about the same thickness as the others. And then for our beautiful oyster mushrooms, I'm going to slice them lengthwise. And these are super clean. Honestly, whenever I buy them, they're usually just as clean as this. The only thing I'm going to do is just trim off the ends, maybe just about like a centimeter worth, because it's kind of hard and dry. But other than that, they're clean and ready to go. And some of the small ones like this, you can just leave whole, because it's really nice to find this in your pasta. They're like tiny little oysters. And with the chanterelles, I've already rinsed them. They're usually extremely dirty, so you kind of have no choice, but I prefer not rinsing mushrooms because they do suck up a lot of water, and these guys are a little wet, but it'll be okay. But I still like to go over them once more and kind of remove any sediment that you might find under the gills. And I don't cut the stems off on these because they're just so delicate and so delicious. Instead, what I'll do is I'll just kind of scrape it and then maybe cut like a tiny bit. And since chanterelles are kind of randomly shaped, you might need to peel some apart just to kind of get out dirt from the different crevices. Chanterelles are like the cartoon mushroom. They're so randomly shaped and yet beautiful. They remind me of or like something you'd see in like a fairy tale illustration. And last but not least, we have the beach mushrooms. And the reason they're called this is because they grow on beach trees. These are like the easiest because they're super clean. You just kind of want to cut off the weird looking bottoms. And I kind of leave these stuck together because it's nice when you find them together like that in the pasta dish. Okay. And here you've got all your clean mushrooms. We'll see how much fits actually in the skillet. To start our ragu, I'm going to cut up an onion, and I'm going to give it a nice fine mince because I really want it to kind of disappear in the dish. Before I forget, I'm going to turn on the skillet, put it on like medium-high, and also 3 cloves of garlic. And with the garlic too, I just want it really nice and fine. So now my skillet is getting nice and warm, so I'm going to add some olive oil. It smells really nice. And I'm going to add the onions first, followed by the garlic. And to help the onions break down, my secret is always adding a good pinch of salt. And now I'm going to add the garlic. So now it's about time to start adding the mushrooms. And I'm not going to add all of this, just probably 3/4. And you don't want to add salt when you're sauteing mushrooms until they've let out all their moisture. And then that's when you can season them. And meanwhile, I'm just going to season our pasta water. Okay, so I'm going to add my coarse salt. You really want a good amount because you want your pasta to be seasoned well. And back to the mushrooms. As you can see, some of them are getting kind of, well, you can say mushy, but they're letting out all the liquid. I am going to raise the heat because the mushrooms can actually benefit from the higher heat. And meanwhile, I'm going to slice up some chives and chop up some parsley, and this will be our garnish. And let me check back on the mushrooms. They're getting wetter and wetter and shrinking at the same time. I am going to add the pasta, about, let's say, 12 ounces of pasta of this nice giri integrale. This is whole wheat, bell-shaped flours. Okay, now that the mushrooms are at this stage, this kind of mushy stage, this is when I like to season them. So I'll do a sprinkling of salt and a grinding of pepper. So this is my house blend. It includes paprika and some other secret ingredients. This is what I think gives my food a little bit of Hungarian flair. So I'm just going to add a sprinkling of this. Now what I'm going to do is add a little bit of pasta water to the skillet. And this will kind of help it turn into a sauce. Of course, I'm adding heavy cream to this eventually as well. But for now, I just want to make sure that the mushrooms and the onions are nice and cooked through. And also I want to scrape up all the wonderful bits that have stuck to the skillet. Let's add a little more. And now that everything is scraped up, I'm going to add my heavy cream. So I've got this really full fat heavy cream. I'm going to add the entire container. This is about like 1.5 cups or so. And this is going to be the most delicious mushroom ragu. So my pasta's been cooking for about 6-7 minutes. So it's a good al dente right now. Yeah, this is a good time to add it. You want it to cook in the sauce. But doesn't that look so good? I'm going to add the chives and the parsley. And mix that in. And so I don't really add cheese to this dish because I think it's just so rich the way it is. I think the herbs are really what give it that extra oomph at the end. Okay, and we're ready to serve. Okay, and here's our mushroom ragu. I don't want to wait any longer because I am dying to try this, but it's so beautiful. I love this pasta shape because it really mimics the kind of shape of the oyster mushroom and some of the other mushrooms. But okay, I'm going in now. I really like it. And the chives really add this little bit of oniony kick. It helps with the richness of the cream to have that. And here's one of these oyster mushrooms. And my favorite, chanterelle. There's such a great union here in flavors, but you still kind of get the different flavors and different textures of the different mushrooms. I gotta stop because otherwise I'm gonna eat the whole thing. It's a really nice, earthy, creamy, luscious dish. So my recommendation for you is that whenever you see an unusual mushroom, whether that's at the supermarket or the farmer's market, go ahead and pick it up and try this dish. Try to see how many different mushrooms you can mix together. I think you'll really like the play of textures and flavors. And this is one of those dishes that you can make for a family meal, and I think everyone will be pleased. It's just so inviting and earthy and warm, and it's a nice way to celebrate the unusual characteristics of mushrooms, which I think are one of the most interesting things that the forest can give us. So I hope you try this dish, and if you do, please let me know about it in the comments. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe.